Everyone has something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic, and it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils, and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others. Only on Real Revolution Radio.
Welcome everybody back to the Missing Link. This is our third Missing Link today. It's Love Inspiring New Knowledge, and today we have the honor of having Aurora, back with us. I chatted with you once before on something we did last year, and this will be the second time. And how are you today, Aurora?
I'm fantastic, and thank you so much for having me on the Missing Link.
You're very, very welcome. I guess we can start with, why don't you let everybody know a little bit about yourself, about your journey, about things that have happened to you, to get to the point where we are here today on the Missing Link.
Yes, so thank you for that opening. I am a galactic walk-in. And so I use the term galactic to say that I'm a walk-in, like I'm not the original person that was born into this body. And also I walked in, there was a real metabolic death in 2001, so that's 20 years ago. I literally just had the 20th anniversary of the day that I walked in, and I was very surprised. Like, I thought that I would be here, I thought it would be a short gig, that it would be kind of short and done, and then mission accomplished, and then on to the next thing. So yeah, being here for 20 years is a little bit of a surprise. And the way that I came in here was through a genetic portal that is this shape that I'm holding up called the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. So all of my work and everything that I talk about is really all centered around this concept. It's the concept of a higher dimensional torus shape and a way of moving DNA in a new oscillation pattern, like a new quote unquote dance for your DNA. So I came into this body and into this world 20 years ago. There was so much that I did not know about Earth human culture, or about how to integrate my message into what was here. And also being in my body was a big challenge too, because I had neurological damage and other things like that. So it was it's been a tough mission and also very rewarding. I don't complain that it has taken more than 3 years. I hope that comes across. I'm amazed that I've been here for 20 years, and I've also seen so much change in human Earth culture in terms of people's cognitive abilities leveling up to be able to even understand what this concept is. And I do extensive paintings that are all about what I would call a map of time, that are very you might call them geometric, or they're like sacred geometry, but it's a language of frequency. And when I first started making these paintings and I would share them with people would smile and nod politely, 20 years ago. And more recently, when people see my paintings, they're like, oh, wait, I understand, I resonate, I know what you're painting, I know what it is. It is a higher dimensional form of communication. So that's super gratifying to me, that I'm here for a long time, kind of watching the culture of people become much more receptive to the place where I come from. And where I come from is not just like a planet or even a star to point to in the sky. Like people would say, where are you from? Point to it in the sky. And I would say, it's not like that. I am from a collective of consciousness, or a group of consciousness. And I'm the Aurora Collective. And my group, you could think of it like a symphony, or like many musicians who play music together and are extremely well integrated in terms of body, being, energy, and mind, and cognitive abilities and self-expression. Just like your body has organs that all fit together and all work together, that's what my collective is like. And the point is, we come from diverse places. So there are experts from all sorts of different places and times. And we also travel around a lot. So we travel from star system to star system on the whole network of light, of the stellar consciousness network up there, out there, beyond time and space. And it's always with a purpose. like, I joke that I didn't come here to Earth, like, on a sightseeing tour or something like that, even though we love to share art and beauty. And that's one of the ways of improving the world. And, I'm usually not about a violent fighting. It's not like a fighting against or a pushing against or something like that. It is an upliftment through sharing really pure information, and it can be done through art and through music and through other, intellectual forms of sharing. So that's what my collective usually does. And I am here now. I came here 20 years ago with this information to share on Earth. And all of this is about, let's say, redirecting the time stream, that events were going in a particular direction, and that if you want to have something change down the road, you have to change things over here. Like, that's the way it works in time. Like, if you want to rectify something that's far, far, I'm trying to see on the screen where my finger's far, far, far away, you have to make a little change over here, and then it goes and grows and grows and grows, and the reverberations spread outward, and then you end up having the change that you want. It magnifies or amplifies days, weeks, months, or many decades or hundreds of years in the future. So I came in 2001 in order to plant these seeds, to make these changes and modifications to what was happening in time, with the intention that it would heal difficulties or challenges or imbalances, might be a good word. There are things that are imperfect in terms of time, and that some of them are time loops or time knots or conflicts, like, illogical conflicts in the time stream, or that there's no time itself. Oh, that's my little dog. She's right here next to me. She loves to be a part of everything. Time itself is alive and has a body metabolism, just like your body has blood that flows through it. And yeah, Patricia's making a comment. She says, every action rippling into infinity. Absolutely. Like, even mundane actions, like you choose to drink a cup of coffee, that has ramifications. These all have reverberations through time. So give yourself credit that just being here is a huge accomplishment, and even doing things that are quote unquote regular activities are profound. And then also doing things intentionally or consciously, changing, like, if you make art or music, or you write something, or even service to others, helping, healing, building community, those things also have huge ripples spreading outward. And all of this is about the entire planet and what now would be called personal and planetary ascension, that I came in 20 years ago and have been having a intention of having a positive influence on what's happening now. And what's happening now here on our planet doesn't just, it's not just our neighborhood or in our world, however you look at the world. Our world, it's not just our neighborhood, but that it ripples across time, across dimensionality, to other worlds, to other time frames. So the consciousness transformation that is happening here now is very profound and is very important. And I, again, applaud and encourage everyone that's doing the spiritual work that's here on their path, and that is adding to what you would say is creating a new and better version of reality.
So did you, the body that you walked into, did it take a lot of physical healing? Did that body have a lot of trauma from what it went through, and then you had to go through a lot of this healing in order to, get the strength back that this physical vessel that you took over may have been suffering?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's very accurate. It took me, I would say, at least the first 4 or 5 years of being here in my body, because there was a lot of neurological damage. It's like it was a brain injury that was enough to kill the person that was here originally, that was born in this body. So when I first came here in this body, I did not have very good language skills, had no math skills. I was totally illiterate. All of those areas of the brain had been obliterated or destroyed or disconnected in some way. So I was starting from the beginning in many ways. And so I had to learn how to do math, and also a lot of body coordination things, and learning to express myself like through language. Although as soon as I came here, I was making artwork, and I did all these extensive drawings, and I would show people things, but then I had to understand, like, people were not really getting it. So I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna have to learn how to verbalize this. So I actually, through many years, learned to be more articulate about it. And yeah, for a long time I had neurological damage and seizures and other deficits. So it's been a very long journey of healing. And what I do with Flying Rainbow Lasagne is I do these genetic maneuvers that have allowed me either to bounce signals around my brain to avoid the damaged areas, or I do a lot of my computing in the cloud, quote unquote, in the cloud. Like now there are these metaphors that I can use now. So that's like, if you only, here's my phone. My phone only has a little bit of memory space in it, but you can have the cloud where you store all of your major files. So my brain is like, a small computer, and maybe it has some damage or a cracked screen or something like that. But I do most of my computing up there in the stellar network. And that network, every star in the sky is like a neuron in a great brain. And what I do is I do this oscillation back and forth, and I connect with that great brain, and I'm able to use that for my information storage and for a lot of my processing and for a lot of my calculations and other higher level thought processes. So I found ways to compensate for whatever unusual qualities. I'm definitely non-neurotypical, and have, look at the world in a different way. And also, have done a lot of physical practices of healing. Like I had to learn about nutrition. I had to learn about what superfoods are and what helps your brain to grow and all of these things, and learn about exercise and learn about the things you can do for your body. So like having a body is new for me. So I had to get the crash course in how to do all these things. So yeah, it took a very long time to heal. And now I'm happy to say like I'm in a very good place with being in a physical body and being like healthy and having good eyesight and good perception and good articulation and being able to share all of my thoughts and ideas effectively, communicate effectively with others.
Now, when you came into the body, did you come in with the clean slate where you didn't have memories like most people come here, and then you had to start learning these connections, learning where you were from, and learning these things? Or did you come in and you knew all this, but it was just hard to be able to communicate this stuff outwards because, you knew that who you were, but getting people to understand who you were is a different ball game. So did you have the actual knowing already, or it's something that you had to take baby steps and learn throughout your journey?
That's also such a good question. I didn't have any amnesia about the Aurora Collective or where I came from. I came in with the full knowledge and memories and still connecting all the time, still being connected to that world. But what I did not have is, like you're saying, the verbal articulation and also the social knowledge of how to articulate and describe myself. For many years, I didn't have the word walk-in to be able to say what I was to people. I didn't know how to describe my experience. And what eventually happened was I made a good friend where I was living in Woodstock, and I told her my story, and she said, "You sound like you are a walk-in." And she gave me this book called ET 101, the Handbook. And I'd been there for on Earth here, whatever, for several years. And I'm like, wow, I've been here for this long, and I finally got the handbook. So you guys can still find it. It's kind of like a little soft cover spiral bound pamphlet. And it describes in there, like, what is a walk-in? What is a crawl-in? All these different, rather unusual forms that consciousness can take. So that was when I started to be able to tell people like, oh yeah, I'm Aurora, and I'm a walk-in, and this is what this is. And that walk-ins can also be a soul that is a human soul, or a soul that is an ancestral soul. So I use the term galactic to make it clear that I'm not an Earth person. Earth people are beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But that my origins are from the stars, and that mostly where I come from, I'm an abstraction, like a waveform, not usually an embodied person with a face having to know about proper nutrition and the balance of carbohydrates and fats in a diet. Like I didn't know about any of those things. So having a body and body care and social integration on that level was a big challenge for me, or like a steep learning curve. And also the social structure of where I come from is very different. Like it's very loving, it's very non-competitive. Being here, like I joke about the barbarian values of what it's like here. I don't mean to sound condescending at all. Like I hope that it comes across the right way. Because people from this world, they'd be like, yeah, like this world is tough. This world is tough, right? That people can be mean or abusive or cruel. There's violence and danger, and there's lies. Like I was not prepared for lies at all, because I come from a place where you see and know everything about a person, like a higher dimensional state where you just read everything about a person. So the idea of lies and deceit and two-facedness, like saying one thing but meaning another, that was a steep learning curve for me, because I was like, wait, that they said this, but they meant this. That was mind blowing to me. So, but then once I got that and kind of understood what this place was more about, then I was like, oh, now I understand more. So then I could be more self-protective. But when I first came here, I was very wide-eyed and naive and didn't know anything about the things that you have to watch out for. And so my journey is parallel to the journey of anyone when you come here as a baby or you're a tiny child, like under 5, and you're just learning about the world and you're being acculturated. A lot of children don't yet understand the idea of lies, or that grown-ups can lie, or that people can be dangerous. You know, they'll take candy from strangers or get into people's cars. They just don't understand that the world contains dangers. So my journey of acculturation has been similar, but it happened in a chronologically adult body, not in a child's body.
So a lot of that, is in the way that, humans here are programmed through the spelling. There's spells in the words, and people say things, but they're saying some kind of a spell which they're not actually meaning to, but yet they're casting the spell with the words, and that's kind of the whole backwards. Light is dark, dark is light, things are reversed. So you're thinking you're saying one thing, and then you're actually meaning something else, which people that are very intuitive and perceptive and have that intuition have a hard time with that, because you're feeling the person saying one thing, but something else is coming out of their mouth.
Exactly, the inauthenticity, which is also like when you're a little child, if you're authentic, you think like, yeah, everybody's just sharing their true feelings and no one is saying the opposite of what they actually feel. And it took several experiences where I was like, wait a minute, that person said the opposite of what they were actually feeling. And I'm laughing now. Like, you could run a clips reel of like Aurora's great misunderstandings. Like when I first got here, like it could be funny, but also it was like not funny. It's like ironic, but also harmful, a bit dangerous. So yeah, I had to learn how to protect myself much more from inauthenticity. But I'll also say, in recent years, I've met the most stellar people. Like maybe I met had got my life lessons over with in the first couple of years, where I met people who were, inauthentic or lied or anything like that. And then I kind of learned about the world. But more recently, the people that I interact with or magnetize to me are incredible. And I have a whole, like an online class and a chat room and, like a Discord app chat room of people who I think are the cream of the crop of the best humans. So I just think I had to find my people, or find people who are receptive to who I am and to what I am, and just not even go with the lower stratum of society of people who are involved in lying or deception or self-lying or any abuses or self-abuse or any of those things. Like, and when I say that, I mean like self-destruction and the things that they're doing. Like, I've learned kind of just like leave them to their zone, and then go for people that are in a different cognitive field.
Yeah, not everybody is ready to be helped. Some people are stuck in a program, and no matter what you say or do, they can't get out of that programming. And no matter how benevolent or whatever you are, if they're not ready to hear in the message, then they're just not ready. And that's, for some people, is a little bit hard, because we just want to help and to heal and just be there for everybody. But yet sometimes we spin our wheels and then get frustrated when people don't receive those messages. And like I say, sometimes they're just not ready for you or that message that you've come to bring them.
I would agree. I would say Earth is a one-room schoolhouse with varying levels of cognitive ability and varying levels of spiritual development. And it was clear to me early on that not everybody was receptive to this idea, even though I thought that it's like lasagna for everybody and that everyone would just love it immediately. And I didn't understand that some people would either not understand it or even be highly resistant to it. So again, it just took me a while to be able to find the people that had the cognitive ability, because it is a sophisticated concept, and also the spiritual advancement. And also, I've seen humanity totally level up over the past 20 years of like, people never used to know about what a torus was, and now that is relatively, widespread knowledge, and so many other aspects of like the subtle body and what is going on energetically, and even just the way that people interact socially, being energetically present and sensitive, as opposed to just intellectually present and then working with a social set of parameters. Like I've seen humans level up a lot. So huge applause. Everyone's doing a great job. And then also all of that is like the foundation work or the workout at the gym that then prepares you to run the spiritual marathon, which I feel has to do with becoming purely telepathic and being able to connect with all of the minds on the planet, including other plants and animals, and then also expanding outward from just this world, planet or world, however you look at the world, and touching other dimensions and other worldly places or other galaxies or star systems. That it's like first learning how to be a good neighbor with the people around you, and then learning how to be with civilized people that are outside of this world, because their values and culture are different. And I don't want to use the barbarian term, like everyone is like Conan with a sword, but there is a little bit of that here, like a very ego competitive world, and some violence physically and also some violence verbally and mentally. And let's say aggression might be a better word, like being mentally aggressive. And I think that there's just a different level of sophisticated society when you become telepathic and empathic. So we can say tele-empathic, thinking and feeling in connection with other people beyond the words of the mouth. And that there's a sensitivity there at higher levels of development that it's just like being a musician. Like not everything is heavy metal or like how loud can you play. A lot of being a musician is like listening to the other musicians in the band, taking time to rest when you don't play. Then it's time for you to play and you play your part. So the give and take and the sensitivity, that's what the higher levels of galactic society are really like. And it's very, very different than the ego competitive state of what most humans here are used to. And most humans call it like, it's the laws of the jungle, and it's like Charles Darwin and evolution, and there's a lot of justification for it, but it's really kind of keeps people mired in a certain level of like, I'm pushing and fighting against you. Like if you imagine like a symphony orchestra, but everybody's like hitting each other with their violins. Like you should not use your instruments to hit each other. You should play with each other. That's what I'm trying to say. So the way that people use their minds, the way that people use their energy emanations can be violent or aggressive here. And many people justify it. They're like, well, the world's a violent place. Well, it's like, there are bad neighborhoods. Yes, there's like the wrong side of the tracks or things like that, bad neighborhoods. But then there's also very sophisticated places where you would never get in or interact, let's say, with those tendencies. Like you would just never go there because the people, you wouldn't be magnetized into that presence. So if you expect that the world will be a violent, horrific place and you have to be the meanest psychopath to survive, then you will be surrounded by psychopaths. There's a whole world of non-psychopathic, telepathic interaction that I come from, which is why it was hard to be on Earth, where there's psychopathology, there's sociopathology, there's all of these things that are unhealthy and dysfunctional, sexual dysfunction, that it's just, I had to learn about all of these things. And so I've been a crash course. And also, I'm not just me, one person. I'm actually the distillation of my whole entire Aurora Collective, a whole group of beings. So, and I'm still connected to them. So everything that I'm experiencing here and that is happening to me, they also know about it. I myself, my higher self state, knows about it on a quantum entanglement level. Like there's no time lag. It is evident what is happening here. So everybody is learning. Everybody is learning about what life is like here. And also that is part of the retuning of reality. Like, oh, that's what life is like there in that time. So if we want to have a different emanation going into the future, then this thing has to be done here, like plant this seed here, so that at a certain point it will be a giant redwood tree at this point in the future. And that's kind of what it's cultivation of consciousness that is going on here in a very positive sense. So the Aurora Collective, my beingness in this higher dimensional state, is part of program is not the right word, intention, structured intention to help foster humanity and all life that's on Earth here, because it's all a connected ecosystem, into greater levels of, ascension or higher dimensional perception and navigation, leveling up, all of these things. And a big part of it is changing the genetic code. I don't want to say change, influencing, positively influencing the genetic code, especially of humans, because humans have been genetically modified many times. So like if my little dog is over here and she's a Chihuahua, but Chihuahuas were once wolves. So like you went from a big giant wolf that could run around and had a very thick coat and all of that to like, you know, a little tiny dog that's, you know, doesn't have a lot of hair and definitely is not as fierce as a wolf, even though she thinks she is. It's the domestication process. And so humans have been changed in our genetic capacities from being wild wolves into being these domesticated animals. But I want you to know that a wild human or a feral human doesn't necessarily look like, quote unquote, a caveman or, you know, something like that, like very dirty or animalistic. That really the feral human has amazing psychic powers that allow us to do so many things with our mind or spirituality as opposed to with just the muscles of our body. That is what humans have had cultures like that on Earth before, but it's in a timeless time, like before recorded history, and it is suppressed history. But there definitely were cultures here on Earth that were highly sophisticated, where everybody had their psychic powers and telekinesis, like the capacity to levitate an object with your mind. That was like child's play. That was an ordinary thing to do. And so there are mythical stories, like the stories of Stonehenge and Merlin levitating the stones of Stonehenge or walking them into place. This whole idea of that it was things that happened in a mythical time that have been mythologized, but those are actually derivatives of a real culture. That's our heritage. And I would even say, you could think of it as ancient, but I think of it as concurrent. But it's just in another dimension. It's partitioned. Like we're in this world, it's in that world. And there's like a bifurcation between the two worlds. But you're there living that life right now. And it's Atlantis, or the place before we were genetically modified. And then we are here in a different self state where, yes, like you eat regular food from a grocery store and drive to the store, you don't levitate to the store, and all of the things that we do are different than the way that we sustained ourselves in that other time. But I don't want you to think that this life here is worse or not heroic. That this life here, you are a hero in this life here, even as you were or are in that other mythological world of pure magic, which might be remembered as like, you know, Merlin, the mists of Avalon, Hyperborea, Agartha or Inner Earth or Hagartha or Shambhala, Shangri-La, Atlantis, all of these places that I'm talking about, they're mythologized, but I think that they are cultural vestigial traces of something that we all really experienced. We were a much more exalted culture, and we are now in this process of returning to those levels of being exalted, but with a lot more wisdom. That we went through this fall or crashing down or diminishment, and there's lots of myths about that too, like the myth of Inanna or Persephone or any of these heroic stories of someone who had superpowers, but then they lost it, and then they had to live as a mere mortal or in a hell realm, and then they eventually climbed the ladder back up and they got their powers back. I think these are all the hero's journey story of us as individuals and as an Earth collective, of what we are doing, having lost these great treasures, which are mind treasures and consciousness treasures, and being plunged into it. You mentioned amnesia. Most people, when they are born, they have amnesia. They don't even remember where they were before they became a human infant, or their past lives, or know their context. And then it takes a long time to kind of like get your brain organized and learn how to even function as a basic level here. All of those things, that's part of the diminishment. And then right now is the time of rectification. So I have nothing but good news for everyone, even though I know that life is very challenging and I'm very connected to reality and the challenges of reality. But what we're experiencing right now is we've gone to the nadir, like the lowest point in the sine wave. So there's like the zenith up here that's very high and the nadir that's down here. We've gone to the lowest point, and now it is nothing more than the climbing back up to the highest point again. And so that's considered like ascension into a golden age. It's again spoken of mythologically. I want people to know that it's inevitable. It's part of the innate programming of your DNA to return to that state of divine perfection and balance and being connected to God. And when I talk about God, like, no offense to anyone, but I'm speaking about something that is not really like an anthropomorphic or a human-shaped God, but more of this sense of an abstraction, a divine abstraction that is pure energy, not necessarily something that has a face, like, the Sistine Chapel, the way that it portrays God or gods, like a man with a beard who has a sense of, divine justice or whatever. I'm talking more about the divine presence, and we return to the connection with that divine presence, and it's transformative. And when one person does it, it's pretty amazing. And when a whole group of people in a world do it all at once, it is revolutionary. Like, that is we're in that moment now. So all of the work of personal development and spiritual aspirations and wanting to ascend or become a master and to be fully responsible for self and self-state and mental state and cognitive abilities and what you emanate in the world, all of those things add up to a giant collective change. And it's a quantum leap, meaning like you gather energy, like get momentum going, and then all of a sudden, boom, like you make that leap. So we as a Earth Collective have been gathering energy for a very long time. And so I'm one of the factors here to kind of like bring in that energy and bring in new opportunities and new possibilities. And there are many people that are here on missions. Some people who are natives that are born here, some people who are star visitors or otherworldly visitors that come here. And it's all for a purpose. Like, we're in a very purposeful time. So for anybody who might feel that their life is meaningless or insignificant, or like, I'm just some stupid guy and I just work at some stupid job and I just drink my coffee, like, I don't think that that's the whole story of who you are and what you are, even though that might be like the little tiny amount that shows on one surface level. There's a whole lot else that's going on. So take heart and know that your lives have profound meaning, and that also part of it might be partitioned away from your consciousness. Like the things that you're doing, you might be doing in a dreaming state, in a higher self state, not necessarily knowing about it. And then you get up in the morning, you're like, oh, time to drink my coffee and go to my job and, whatever, supervise the packing of boxes or whatever is your job.
Yeah, and you could have been working all night. And I think this, dimension has been hijacked, and, it's not the way it's supposed to be here. And, a lot of us, if not all of us, have come here to right the ship and get it back on track to where it should be. And a big part of that is, they created this yin and the yang, when I believe everything is yin, everything is love, everything is light. You don't need dark and to have light, but they've convinced people in order to justify shitty behavior and in order for them to justify the horrid things that happen here. So they created this fake paradigm that there has to be this darkness, there has to be this evil, everybody has the good and the evil in them. When they created that, that's not the way things are supposed to be here. But yet, that's what people believe, and then they've taught people that, that we're sinners, we're insignificant, we're nothing, in order for us to not delve into that, psychic ability, that connection, that light, that that heart, have mind energy that everybody's been able to, now we're starting to connect more and starting to understand, because people have come here and there's been a lot of teachers, and there's, a lot of information that we've been getting from source, and, things that are helping us to find back our path. And that's what I believe a lot, like, you've come here to do, is to help assist people in that, great awakening, but back to just to our true selves. And that's what, what we're all wanting to be, and not this, just this little tiny insignificant, time and space that, a lot of people, are taught to believe that we are here.
As you were speaking, I felt my energy rising up so much, like body energy affirmation of all the things that you were saying, because you made beautiful points about the socially perceived necessity of quote unquote darkness or evil. And I agree with what you're saying. The idea that there must be duality or light versus dark in order to perceive aspects of light is a misperception or a misnomer. And a lot of it comes from our biology. So duality is programmed into our body structure. We have two eyes, one eye, two eyes. And what we do is build a picture of the world based upon the slightly different pictures that we get, like out of this viewpoint and this viewpoint, eye versus eye. And even the way that we perceive light, like in my face on your screen, there's this side of my face, which is light, and then there's this side of my face, which is in shadow. And our eyeballs system of perception and the way that it goes into the ocular areas of your brain is meant to work on contrast, like light versus dark. And I'm a visual artist and a painter, and that's everything that you do when you make a realistic painting. You do light and shadow, and doing that makes a face look like a face, or makes a bowl of fruit look like a fruit. It makes things look real. So we have this innate expectation that in the realm of spiritual wisdom or cognitive ability, that you're saying, there must be light versus dark. And I completely agree. Like, I disagree. You don't have to have darkness in order to perceive light. First of all, if you ever have seen a candle with the flame at the top, the flame does not cast a shadow. The candle itself is solid and does have a shadow, but not the plasma of flame itself. And our bodies, our true bodies, are light bodies. They're like the plasma flame of, or like if you have a fireplace and you see a log burning and there's flames coming off of that log, the substance of that flame is like what our bodies are really made out of. And I don't believe that it's necessary for us to have some darkness or evil or shadow in order to justify or be contrast to the light that we experience. It is perhaps something that on an anthropomorphic or purely human level, we go through this sense, just like having a physical body means you look at the world as left eye versus right eye, or light versus shadow. But all you need to do is understand like that, just the viewpoint from this body. Because before I was in this body, I come from a realm of pure light and pure waveform. And there are amazing subtleties, but you don't have to have blackness in order to highlight the light. So, here, like, I'll use this as an example. There's all sorts of different frequencies of color on my sculpture. We don't have to have black as the contrast. You can see like red is different than orange, and then orange is different than purple. Like, there's all of these different subtleties in the realm of pure light. So I come from a place that is a realm of pure consciousness and pure, when we use the word light, let's replace that with information or data, that it is an abstract carrying of organizational principles, and that you can have organizational principles that are like this color or this flavor, and then principles that are this color or this flavor. And you don't necessarily have to have darkness, blackness, shadow, or evil or chaos as the contrast between those two things. You can clearly see like, here's this thing and here's this thing. So the whole idea of having to have duality is transcended when you get to higher dimensional levels and higher self states. But here in the level of anthropomorphism, like human-centeredness, and kind of plunged into this level of low, it's a stratification, like the lower layers of denser layers of what it is like to be, then it feels like, oh yes, everything is thing versus thing, like this versus this, and this, and cold versus heat, and light versus dark, and up versus down. And it is a very limiting viewpoint. So just understand that the duality gets resolved into unity consciousness when you get to higher levels of stratification and less dense realms in the spiritual / cognitive journey. And then all of the things that seemed like, there's only like 2 flavors, chocolate and vanilla, all of a sudden you're like, no, actually there's 70 million flavors, and that was an extremely limited viewpoint. That's part of the challenge of the one-room schoolhouse, that you might be used to like 70 million flavors, and you're looking at the chocolate and vanilla world and being like, there are flavors that are missing, definitely, in terms of the subtleties of what is going on. So understand that, like, if you're coming from that level and you feel frustrated, validate your frustration. And if you've never considered the idea that there are flavors beyond merely chocolate or vanilla or black or white, then if you're like coming from a different trajectory and you've never been up there to those higher realms and been to the Baskin Robbins of the cosmos where you have all these different possibilities and flavors, now you hear it and know that it exists. There are many other different types of flavors and ways of being other than the constant dualistic conflict that we might be used to in this world. And I find the constant conflict and the push and the pull and everything to just be a bit boring or exasperating. So it's like, oh, more duality. Like, oh, I'm so, like, we've done this so much. Like, I punch you and then you punch me, like the tit for tat, all of that type of emotional stuff or communication stuff or social structure or any of those things just becomes to me a bit boring and simplistic. And I think that at a certain point, everyone will recognize, like, that is kind of boring. Like, there are more flavors of interaction between our self versus self versus other, community versus self, community versus community, than just these limited factors. Even the male-female paradigm, like man versus woman, woman versus man, all these things, these are all biological dualistic imperatives. But then we change a lot when we go into a higher state. Patricia's saying a funny thing. She said, I think the word she's looking for is quote unquote dumb. I would say yes. We could use that as the vernacular. Thank you for saying that for me so that I didn't sound condescending. It is a little bit dumb, or let's say low information. That's what I say to some of these things that are just like not mentally sophisticated. I'm like, wow, that doesn't really carry a lot of signal. That doesn't really inform me very much. It's just low information. It's dumbed down. Or like when you take something that's a complex picture and then you pixelate it, like you make it smaller and smaller and smaller until it kind of becomes just fuzzy and it loses all its beauty and sharp edges. I think that's what has happened. Just a lot of pixelation, low information, the dumbing down of the original signal, and that humanity has an amazing capacity to be, everyone should be a genius, or what would be considered a genius, like extremely, extremely intelligent, but that humans are not necessarily cultivated into those levels of consciousness or given the opportunity to really flex their wings and fly. There's a lot of social pressures to remain small and enslaved or limited. Like, don't be a troublemaker. Don't start thinking with your own brain. Don't be a troublemaker. Drink beer, watch TV, be limited, and be, more easily controlled. So that's it. That's pretty much the agenda has been for an uncountable number of years, like whatever, thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, a diminishment of human consciousness to make humans more easily, let's say, exploited, if not outright enslaved. Like, it's much easier to take advantage of someone who just has low cognitive ability and low aspirations and doesn't even know that there are more than 2 flavors of ice cream out there.
And children are born here, as the genius like you talked about, and until about 5 years old, 6 years old, once they enter the system, of course, the parents who are already programmed are already stopping them. Don't touch that, or that's not really there, or you shouldn't do that, start limiting. But children are really born geniuses, like, as here, and it's because of that programming, it's because of the system, that dumbs people down in order for them to be separated from the collective, because the collective is all powerful, and the system, the program, the rulers of this, dimension have wanted people to be divided and wanted people to separate themselves from themselves in order for them to stay in control of each individual, not knowing if all the individuals were collectively, together, then they couldn't be controlled, because the only thing that they can't control is love. And, by them, separating each person from the collective, now you're on a solo mission, and now you're trying to figure out how you fit in when you already fit in. But they teach you that you don't, in order to keep us away from our true power and our true energetic source. And that's been the whole purpose of of this exercise or this mission is to connect yourself back to the collective, to plug yourself back in, to hear the messages from source, to hear the messages from other people that are going through this, journey together. And that's the issue. It's designed for us to be separated and not in our true power like we're supposed to be in.
So well said. Everything about the power of the collective, and that's the story of the Tower of Babel from the Bible, or the myth of the Bible, the idea that humans were getting together and everybody spoke the same language, and they were creating something that was a scaffolding that could, quote unquote, get as high as God. And that was like, I'm rather threatened by your scaffolding. I will smash it all to pieces and now give you linguistic cognitive difficulties. And now you won't be able to understand other people from other cultures, and you won't be able to work together. That is the divide and conquer agenda. That is everything that you just mentioned. And yeah, we are moving into these states now of more unity consciousness on a spiritual level, and more socially, what is the word, like sensitive and connected. I'm telling you, we really are becoming a telepathic society. And if we didn't have all of these cell phones right now, and the architecture, all the Wi-Fi and everything that makes them work, we would be telepathic already. That these accoutrements, it's just like eyeglasses. Like if you get eyeglasses, and I wear contact lenses to be able to see because I have, neurological problems and everything. But, if you get lenses to kind of compensate, then you need them. You keep on using them, and you even kind of need them more and more, the more that you become dependent upon them. And that these technological accoutrements, they're kind of like the eyeglasses or the, compensatory modes for something that we should be able to do with our mind. Like you call someone on the phone with your mind. And the more that we use the regular phone instead of using the phone of the mind, then the more that we become used to doing that. So when you are able to be telepathic and empathic, it is the social collective coming together, and it goes across cultural boundaries. So you can call up people that live in China and have a different, not only language structure, but they have different brain structure because of the way that their language is structured. Like they're very different than English speakers. And there's this great wall that is between our two cultures. There would be no great wall. We would be able to think with people that have a different cultural background, linguistic programming in their mind, a different viewpoint of a cosmology of how the world is created. So we would be incredibly strong as humans, as one species, and as, when I use the word planetary, like don't get caught up in what the shape of the Earth is or where we are or whatever, but let's just say world. Like we all live in a world or in a realm, and instead of having some other force, malevolent or non-human or whatever it is, kind of being the overseer, dictating to us what our world should be, humans would all be connected as one cognitive whole and say, wait, we are choosing the type of world that we wish to inhabit or manifest, or how we structure our reality. I'm certain that we would change things like the way that we do money, the way, who gets money and how much and why and what we spend it on. I'm so certain that we would change all of that. And even just doing that would be revolutionary. And then other things on top of that in terms of, let's say, inventions or technology, the way that we use technology or the way that we don't use technology. So I think Catherine Austin Fitts, she's like an interesting thinker and a thought leader. Her work is worth looking into. She did an accounting of everything in the world, like just the physical dollars. And she was like, oh yeah, if there wasn't all this wasteful spending, even with no magical technology, everyone could have an incredibly increased quality of existence. You would not have poverty. You would not have communities that don't have food or water. You would not have the problems with basic hygiene that you have in some places, just from getting away from like the wastefulness of how some places have a lot of money, some places have zero money, and the huge imbalances there. But if you also look at things like, if we all join together cognitively and we're able to use our collective minds and creativity, we would have a completely different level of technology. Like what people are looking for when they are looking for 0 point or clean energy or some of these other forms that are being explored, we would have that times 10 million, because all of that has been heavily suppressed by corporate interests that, of course, want to continue for people to use resources that are limited and polluting. So we would have a very different approach to energy, and we would have a different approach to commerce, and we would have a different approach to abundance. And that's just on the basic level of physical stuff, like what you eat or buy or sell. And then there would be a complete change in terms of spirituality and creativity and what we share, on those levels: art, music, movies, books, ideas, and beyond. That our world would be radically changed and much improved.
Yeah, the biggest problem I believe that humanity faces is this scorecard called money, where we have enough for everybody's need, but we don't have enough for everybody's greed. And because of this scorecard, where people that are greedy want to hoard the resources, hoard the money, hoard all these things, in turn, the balance of life, then when some people want to take and hoard, then it leaves a void where people have to go without, because we are all in this balance. And now when you're taking too much, now others don't have enough water, don't have enough food. And it's because of this greed, and the score called money is the reason why we are at that place and state, as we are today.
Absolutely. And I always envision, like, we don't need money, like we don't need technology, we can throw it all out the window. So I've been more of a purist, but I also understand that you have to transition off of things. Like sometimes if you're on a medicine, you can't just go off of it right away. You have to kind of taper off of it. So I think that it's important to taper off in a sensible way instead of having a giant crash. Someone was making a comment, they said ego-driven beings. There could be such a thing as positive ego, healthy ego, and then there can be such a thing as unhealthy ego. And I think that that's, in the best sense, what happens when people are doing what is called quote-unquote shadow work, or their assessment of the negative, inverted aspects of their personality characteristics. In the best sense, what you do is you get an enlightened view of what is positive in your ego, what is negative in your ego, and rein in the parts that are, not that good, so that it's not harming yourself, and not self-destructive or destructive to others. But I don't think that we have to get rid of our ego completely, because you're, again, in a more mythological time and place, your ego would become the ego of the ascended master. And that means that you are sculpted, like your life experiences sculpt and form you, just the way that a piece of marble is sculpted by a master artisan into the form that you're supposed to be. And then you have this beautiful coherent light body, and you're made of light, and you're made of all of the experiences that you've been through, and everything that you've done and been and said is perfect and divine and made you who you are. I think that's a healthy state to aspire to, as opposed to some of these really non-compassionate, non-self-loving spiritual practices that are about get rid of your ego, kill your ego is bad and wrong. It's just I don't think so. I think that the ego is temporary. So no, my shirt, I have this shirt, I will wear it for a certain amount of days, and then at a certain point I'll get a new shirt. I'm not going to have this shirt for the next 1,000 years. And you can think of your ego self state in the same way. At a certain point, you are shaped like this, or this is the clothing that fits you. And then at another point, you get a different set of clothing because there's different styles and different activities, and your body changes. Who you are as a soul remains constant, but who you are as an ego changes and develops, and that's positive and appropriate. And it can be a huge transformation. I think we're in a moment of metamorphosis that's like caterpillar into butterfly. Because when humans really get access to their mind abilities, which can be seeing across time, if you're able to be telepathic with beings from 10 million years in the future, everything about who you are changes. I'm going to call someone on the phone in 10 million years. That is very, very different than the way that people approach their life right now, which is a very linear set. I have breakfast, I have lunch, I have dinner, I do the same thing the next day. The idea of, time travel and things like that can be confusing or intimidating. I think that that's why there are a lot of good movies and TV shows that are being made now to kind of help people's minds to even think of what would it be like to be a time traveler? What would it be like to meet yourself in the past and then know that that's you from the future, and then you give yourself information or have an interaction, and then you end up becoming that old man that then comes back and does those things and says things to yourself? Like, all of the idea of time looping and influencing yourself across time, all of that is preparation for what the actual experience is like when you become a higher dimensional being. You recognize that you are meeting yourself across time over and over and over, and that yourself doesn't always look like yourself. You change self state. Sometimes you look different and you didn't know that was yourself. And then you realize that was actually me. And then sometimes there's this realization like why am I effing myself constantly across time, like being violent towards self or sabotaging myself, being, a little bit slang about it. But when you recognize that it's unity consciousness and it's all you, then it's like, why in the world would I be self-destructive? Like, why would I do that thing that I know is going to screw myself over, and then I'm going to have this huge problem, and then I'm going to have to do something to fix it? Like, you wouldn't do those things. So it's really only out of the temporal ego, the amnesia, and the ignorance of not recognizing self-state in a different form, that humans are having so much duality and so much conflict. And then when you do the transformation, caterpillar into butterfly, then all of a sudden you're flying up above time and you're like, oh wait, that's actually me, and the things that I did there reverberated over here and then affected me over here, and that's me. And then I'm also over here, and I'm also over here, like behind my head, down the road 10 million miles, and also circulating around. Like, you realize that it's all you. And then that's greater levels of self-responsibility and accountability. Because if you're like, oh, wait a minute, I did that thing in the 1600s, and then I did that thing last week, and then I will do that thing in 100 years, and all of these things are somehow all affecting and connecting me, and then they're affecting and connecting other people. Then if you're responsible and accountable, then you're like, oh yeah, I want to stop making terrible mistakes, and I want to start doing the right thing and stop making huge headaches and problems for myself and others.
Yeah, I think ego is another divisive label to make powerful beings feel powerless, and to make, because we are these powerful beings, we should feel that we're amazing and powerful and able to connect. We should feel all those things, but then yet now society tells us, if you say I'm powerful, now I'm being egotistical, to take us away from what that power should be, and again to take us away from who our true self is, because we are these great, amazing, beautiful beings of light. And anyone that feels that they're powerful and lives in that power is doing what they're supposed to be. And it's a matter of when these people now that are controlling others and using that power against, now they're saying, oh, that's being arrogant or egotistical, because there's these beings of people that have now perverted this power. And then that's that disconnect to whether or not I should feel that power, or I don't want to be like these clowns that are really hurting others. You don't want to be like that. And then again, that's just that label of divisiveness that keeps people away from their true power.
Such a good point. I know this wonderful person online, this woman who runs 100-mile marathons. She's a mega marathoner, and she's relatively humble about it. But she shares that she's doing this or that training, and that she's going to run this or that race. And it's just like, it's not ego for her to say, yeah, over the weekend I ran 100 miles. Like, I did this, and I ate a jar of peanut butter, and I ran 100 miles. And it's like, that is her life. That's what she does. And she eats a lot of calories to be able to support. That's why I talk about the jar of peanut butter or whatever, however much you have to eat in order to do all of that exercise. It would be a denial of her true self if she pretended that she didn't do it. It would be an ego state to pretend that she doesn't do that level of athleticism. Whatever is the thing that you do that is extraordinary, or that you should feel a genuine sense of pride, you must claim it. You must portray it accurately to others. It would be a betrayal of your true self if you did not overtly state it and claim it. So, I make paintings. I have a lot of artwork that I've made. I'm very prolific as a musician. All of these things, it is totally appropriate to claim it and say, yes, I wrote 5 albums of music, or whatever, I wrote this many songs, or I painted this many paintings, or whatever you do that is extraordinary and unique to your journey. I'm telling everyone, like, please claim that and be in ownership of your greatness, that's not only not wrong, it is very right, and that's the example of healthy ego. And we're used to this world where people are in unhealthy levels of competition, where it's like, oh, you ran 100 miles, but I only ran 1 mile, so therefore you're 100 times better than me. And I hope you can tell that I'm facetious by my tone of voice and my facial expression. But if you're not, or if you're just listening, you can't quite get the subtleties, I'm being totally facetious. That for some people, running 1 mile is a huge accomplishment. You have to not compare yourself to others, even at the same time, while you celebrate the greatness of what you do that is extraordinary. So yeah, for my friend who does 100 miles, that's normal for her. And she also hangs out with other mega athletes, marathoners that also run 100 miles. Like, sometimes you need a running companion, and she had one friend who ran 40 miles with her on one of her journeys of 100 miles. And that's just normal. Like, yeah, 40 miles. For most of us, that would be a lifetime accomplishment. Like even running 26 miles is a lot. But for this particular person, like, yeah, run 40 miles over the weekend, because she's just the support network for the person who's doing 100 miles. Like, that is just the way it is. So in the higher levels of telepathic society and healthy ego world, it's not about competition. It's not about how many miles or how fast or how much you are, or me comparing myself against you. It is very much about your greatness, and everybody recognizes your greatness. And when you do something great, everybody wants to shower you with praise, and also energy flows to your greatness. So this world that we're in right now has some sorts of ego dysfunction, where you can be great and be like, I'm great, like I'm great, and other people are like, oh, you're great, and I'm right now making a very sourpuss face, where some people are like, oh, I actually hate that you're great, and I want to see you, whatever, fall in the gutter and have your hair fall out, and like, they want to see the fall because they have their own sense of insecurities inside. And in the world that I come from, there are not those types of insecurities. Those insecurities remind me very much of some kind of negative fairy tale, like, the evil queen or something like that. That's their evil people that are, instead of celebrating someone else, they're like, oh, you're powerful. Like, mirror, mirror on the wall. That's what I'm trying to think. Like, I'm not the most beautiful. You're the most beautiful. Therefore, I will kill you. Get their heart. Kill that girl, instead of being like, wow, you're really beautiful. And that person is really beautiful. And I have my own unique qualities. That just it's all very different when you get to the higher levels of dimensionality.
Yeah, it's the predictive programming, because everybody's at a different level, and wherever you're at, you should be proud of yourself, of who you are, of where you're at. No matter if, you aspire to run 100 miles and you can only run 1, be proud you can run that 1, and then train if you want to run those 100 miles. If that's what you want, you can get there, because you can do anything that you put your mind and your heart to. And maybe you're not at the level that you want to be, but you still should be proud of where you are, who you are at the point in time. You should be proud of that. You should celebrate that. You should feel good about that. And, don't let anybody else knock you down from it because of their insecurities or their fears or whatever their issues that they're going through. Because, we are supposed to feel good about what we're doing here, and we're supposed to feel that power and feel that we are on the right path, because most people are. It's just the belief that they are is the problem, and that belief is taken away from most people by this predictive programming that you should be this queen or should have this dangling golden carrot in front of you, that they're showing you this fantasy that takes people away from their current situation and tries to put them somewhere where they're not even supposed to be.
So well put. And I would also say a different ego response other than jealousy and competition. If you run 1 mile and someone else runs 100, you can say, you know something? I want to learn from the person who runs 100. I want them to be my coach. I want to know, what do they eat? What exercises do they do? How do they do what they do? And see if I can be on the same path as them. So you can either choose to feel low and go into feelings of inadequacy and insecurity in response to someone else's greatness, or You can celebrate their greatness and say, I want to be great like them. I want them to be my coach or my inspirer or my whatever, I'm inspired by them. And I'm hugely inspired by other musicians that I think are really excellent, that are really at the top of their game. John Coltrane, he was a jazz musician, and I'm totally inspired by him. I'm like, wow, like what an amazing person. So I'm like, instead of like, I'm angry and jealous at his musical ability, I'm like, I'm amazed and blown away at his musical ability, and I want to learn from that, and be like, emulate that. I want to embody that and emulate that. Let us all be that way, that when you see someone who is really at the top of their game or moving in a positive direction, even let's say someone who did like, change their health, like, beat a disease or got slim when they were very overweight or any of those things, be like, I want to be like that. Like, I want to be a success story like that, and not go into competition with them, but just be like, I want to I want to emulate that and be on that successful life path. And then when you're on your successful life path, then you feel really super good about yourself, and you have also a lot of light to share with others.
So now let's talk a little bit about the walk-in, because, I was told by a medium that I was a walk-in from the angelic realm, but I don't have, any memories of that. Unless it was, I came in when I was a baby and, didn't have those, my slate was wiped clean. I also had a, pretty traumatic experience where I fought a whole bunch of gangsters protecting a girl, and I got stabbed 12 times, and I actually saw me leave my body. So I saw my lifeless body on the table as I floated away, but I don't have any memories. And when I came back, I don't have any memories of, what happened on the other side of the experience. So I could have came in there. So my question is, do you have memories of the person that you walked into, of their experiences before you walked in? So the things that the body went through or that person went through, but you aren't actually living those experiences, but you can still remember them like it was you?
So I walked into this body and there was a lot of brain damage and neurological disruption. It's similar to the idea of moving into a house where there's been a house fire, and that maybe there are certain rooms that are destroyed. There might be bookshelves with some books on it that some of the pages are missing or burned or whatever. So I had access to the memories of some of the memories of the woman whose life I walked into, but not all of it. So some of the data, quote unquote, is corrupted, like some of the memory banks are corrupted. Some of the books are partial, and I don't have all of it. So I have like some fragmented memories of what she went through and what her life was like. And I definitely have a very clear memory of the death experience. And I'm curious about when that stabbing incident happened with you. But mostly the memories and the brain, because for me it was brain injury, not like a body injury, that there were so many areas that were disrupted that at a certain point it was healthier and better for me to just be like, I'm going to start my own books. Like, I'm going to start my own library of information and having a reference library of how you go through life and what are the things that you do. So for example, like going to a birthday party, like you get invited to a birthday party, what do you do? So instead of going in like, I will take a book off the shelf that's like missing pages, has burns on it, that is only partial information, and try to get from there like what a birthday party is and what you're supposed to do. I'm like, I will figure out a new one, write a new book, and then from there I will have a calibration of what to do when you go to birthday parties. So, of course, what do? Like, you get a gift, you get a card, you go, bring fun things or whatever. So now I know all of these different things. So I now have, after 20 years of experience of being here, my own reference library of social and emotional touchstones that I can use in order to determine, like, what do you do in a situation? Like, going to a birthday party is one example, but also like, what if someone's having a hard time and they're crying in front of you? What do you do? Like, you hug them, or you talk to them, or you do this, or you do that, or someone experiences a death, like any of these things. So now I have more of my own sense of what I would do as self, as the Aurora self, as opposed to the other person who is here. But so much of that is because of like just the brain injury made the residual memories very difficult to access and just not that complete. So I can certainly remember a lot about her life, but like there were a lot of things that I couldn't remember about her life. Like I knew that there was a family dog growing up, but I couldn't remember a lot of things about it. Like what color was the dog's leash? Like that seems something like, you know, you touch it all the time, but I didn't have any of those memories. And I started to really wonder like, wow, like I had very limited, you know, of all of that. But I'm interested in turning it to you when you had the experience of being stabbed, because that definitely sounds like, you know, a transition, a cognitive change, an ego change, if you felt like a different person afterwards.
Yeah, so it's about maybe 25, 25 years ago, 20 to 25 years ago. And yeah, it was a pretty traumatic experience. I remember it all like it was yesterday. I remember, when after the fight happened, it was in a basement suite of an apartment, and they all left. And I was sitting on the couch and I was bleeding from all these different places. I had a bottle smashed over my head, so blood was coming down. I ended up getting 20 stitches in my head. And I remember I said I need to go to the hospital, because I was, bleeding. And the girl that I had protected, she said, yes, just don't bring the police here, okay? And I was like, I was shocked that she kind of said that. And I remember I stood up and, I went up from the basement suite. I went up the stairs, walked through the glass sliding doors, and then everything went pitch white. I couldn't see anything. Everything was bright white. I didn't have anything out of my vision. But I kept walking through the two glass doors, of the apartment building. And then I fell down the stairs. I hit the ground on the other side. Everything went pitch black. I couldn't see anything. All that light was now black and it was dark. And then I heard this voice that said, "Get up or you're gonna die, Jesse." And it was this profound voice that I heard. And then all of a sudden I could start seeing, and then I could hear she was at the glass sliding doors, or glass opening doors of the apartment. And I heard her crying. And then so I started walking again. And then I told myself, I said, Jesse, if you're gonna pass on, then you gotta at least say I love you to one last girl before you leave. So I turned around and I said, I love you, Kim. And she's like, I love you too, just don't bring the police here, okay? And she said it for the second time. And I walked by myself, it was like 2 or 3 a.m. to get help. But the whole time I was like, bitch, what a bitch, I can't believe. And instead of me thinking about my body and the things, like one punctured my lungs, so my lungs were filling up with blood. And instead of thinking about that, I was just angry at how this girl, and I was like, what a bitch, I can't believe she said that. What do you mean don't bring the police here? So I'm talking to myself the whole way that I'm walking about how horrible, and I only had met her like a couple weeks before that. Right. And then I stepped in front of this gang that wanted to turn her out, to pimp her out, and I stopped them. And so I think that her saying that, even though as horrible as it was, it kept me alive, because I had that anger and adrenaline through my body. But like I said, I remember all this. Like I remember like it happened to me. So was that a time that when I left, would I remember these things like it happened to me, even if I walked in at that time, or was possibly walked in as a baby, so I would remember these things, and I just maybe went and got some downloads. But part of my mission here was to have that clean slate of not remembering where and what I come from, to be able to have this human experience the best that I possibly can, without feeling that I'm from some other place.
Yeah, sometimes people have partitioned memories or consciousness because it doesn't serve them to know everything about who and what they are, what they're doing here, what their mission is. So I'm in touch with a lot of people that I would say are starseeds, and not all of them have total access to who they are, let's say on a cosmic level. Like one friend, he works like refueling jets at the airport, and he jokes, he's like, I just do my stupid job every day, and then I come home and I live my life with my wife. But he knows that he's more than that, and that he's doing more than that. But he has mission security. He knows as much as he needs to know in this moment now. A lot of it is dormant, and then, like many people, when the moment is needed, those areas light up, and then you know what you need to know to do what you need to do. So sometimes there's a self-protective mechanism, or like consider like being a spy or an enemy in being in enemy territory. Sometimes it might be better to be like, yeah, like I don't know any of that stuff, I just work at the airport refueling the jets, you know what I mean? Because otherwise it can be
compromising.
Exactly, you totally understand. So I mean, I don't know, I can't dictate to you what your experience is, but I would say that sometimes when people are walk-ins, they feel a very clear bifurcation, like who I was before and who I am now. Sometimes with people, there's more of a confusion. Like I do know one woman who they didn't tell her that she died on the operating table, but she felt very different after she had an operation. And then later on, she found out like, oh, she died and came back a couple of times. And the doctors had to restart her heart, and that was like she had had some changes in her soul level, or who she would define herself as self. And then I know another person who is a self-proclaimed walk-in, or describes herself as a walk-in, and she has had conscious walk-ins and walk-outs, and even overlaps where there was the person who was the driver of the car, and then she was kind of the passenger of the car, and then he kind of left and she became the driver of the car, and that happened a couple of times in one life, in one body. So there's all different flavors. I will leave space for the validation of all of these different levels of experience. And also, I think like my experience happened about 20 years ago. I know some other walk-ins from that era, and everybody had like some very traumatic thing that happened, like face through the windshield, or some big thing that really mangled the physical body, and then a higher presence came in. And I think that now things are different, that the portals are much more open, that for there to be a transfer or a change of consciousness, I don't think you have to have like your body mangled in a car accident or something really severe happen. I think that you can have your body form stay healthy, but just have the energy presence or soul presence change and have something else come in. It's an easier journey is what I'm trying to say, but easier is in quotes, but a less disruptive journey, because I think that the portals and the energy pathways are different now than they once were. So yeah, it used to be that you had to have like get creamed, you know what I mean? Like totally creamed, and then you die and you go out of your body, and then either come back in a different restructured state, or someone new comes in. And now I think that you don't necessarily have to have your body creamed, because that is very disruptive. Like you spend many years just kind of putting the puzzle pieces back together and rehabilitating the body, and then finally get to do your mission. And I think it's so much more, it's seamless when it's able to be like, yes, like the other occupant went and then there's a new occupant, but I also understand that it might have had like the entrenched idea structure might have made you have to think, make one have to think, oh yes, like what makes a person get out of their body? Death, or the severe injury, or something like that. And that's how you leave, it's how you go. And then someone else comes in. So maybe it's just a change in expectation of what makes a person go and where do they go. In my case, what was happening to the woman's body and life that was killing her, it wasn't even just like the difficulties of a mundane death. There was some aspect to soul erasure technology that was being used. And that is like, your DNA and your soul and the story of you. It's like a song or a waveform or whatever. And there was a particular type of, you could call it a directed energy weapon, but I didn't used to have the language to say that. It was just something that was like an energy beam that was being beamed into the head and brain of this body that was erasing the person that was here. So not even just killing the person, but also erasing their soul, erasing their signature, their uniqueness. And that is really what made me come in as Aurora. That is what I'm with my collective at this higher state level, and I see this thing going on, and I see the reverberations that are going to happen as a result of that. And I was like, that is wrong, that is against cosmic law, that is unfair. And one of the things I should have portrayed about my collective, like we are like law enforcers. We are very much about cosmic law and about doing what is right. and cosmic law is like incontrovertible. And I was like, that is wrong. That is BS. That should not be happening. And I'm going to do something about it. And that was really literally what motivated me to make the Flying Rainbow Lasagne shape and to come into this body, that it was a sense of justice and wanting to set something right. Because that death wasn't even just as bad as a murder. Like regular murder is bad enough. It's like cutting a thread that is supposed to go on. It was like not only cutting the thread, but like erasing it out of history. And that is a very profound thing. Like to erase someone out of history is like a great crime, especially if they're a regular person or a good person. Like we're not talking an axe murderer or someone who's like a genocidal maniac. We're just talking like a regular person. Like she did not deserve to be erased. So all of those things are part of what characterizes me from a higher self state and what caused me to do these things. And I would say that there's almost always soul contract or cosmic motivation beyond any kind of sightseeing or any kind of convenience in terms of doing a walk-in thing, because it's a tough gig. It is very challenging to have to take on someone else's body. Like if you didn't gestate the body and you're trying to integrate into it, and then there's all of these residues and things that are like, I had to clean up a lot of other people's messes. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, I didn't make that mess, but I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to clean it up. I did it. So I did a ton of emotional cleaning and healing and all these different things that were needed in order to occupy this body and be healthy. But a lot of it was like, that's someone else's dirty laundry, but I'm going to do it. Like that is what happened. So I moved in and I scrubbed up the place, and then I actually really renovated. I renovated the body and I refurbished it a lot. And now I love my body. Oh, and Angel Joy is asking, can you share a body? So for my friend's reportage, she says yes, but I have not experienced it myself. But what she had was kind of like training your replacement. Like if you work at a particular job and you're very responsible and you're training your replacement, where you have someone kind of follow you around for a couple of weeks and you overlap with them so that you can be like, here's all of my passcodes, here's all of the files, here's all of the ways that you do this, or whatever. If you work with animals, like I work with animals, and the person that I'm taking on some of the dog walking routes from them, she's saying like that this guy gets upset by FedEx trucks, like this guy over here, always give him a treat when you pass this house, like, stay away, don't go on that lawn, the ladies mean there. So it depends. Like if you're a very responsible person, then you don't just be like, see ya, like I'm getting out of this stupid job, and you just like pick up the pieces, like just deal with it. If you're very responsible and care about what you do, then you train your replacement. And that's how I kind of perceive. I think that walk-ins are very cosmically responsible beings, not pleasure seekers at all, that are actually on missions to do things that are purposeful, kind of like picking up pieces that when someone else has fallen in battle, and you kind of try to pick up the mantle of who they were. So that was what I did with this woman's life. And I took the pieces of potential that had not been fulfilled. She had good potential for like art and music and teaching. And I think I supercharged them. I think I did a good job with bringing her life into a greater capacity than, even it would have been if she had been here. But still, it's a sad loss. Like, if someone dies unfairly like that, it's an unfairness. It's not okay. But this was kind of like the, way of making things better. And then I feel like I got to learn a lot by doing it, even though it's been very challenging. I won't lie at all. But I feel like there's spiritual treasure in all of those things. Like when you go through trials, or my friend who runs mega marathons, like you get really strong by doing it. So it's really the purpose for being here, or what motivates a person for coming in on a difficult mission. Like you do get spiritual treasure, and also fix things up. When you fix things up, like if you fix a cosmic mess or do cosmic laundry, like it benefits everyone, because literally one little change here in time reverberates into a massive improvement. And it's the same is true of screwing things up. Like one little mistake over here becomes a massive mistake over here. So this is the corollary of that. You come in, you do good stuff, and it benefits the future. It benefits everything. It's worth it.
So Angeline says here, can you share a body to help heal the child or person there before them? And I think, and to give you some context into that, so she, and that's my girlfriend Angeline. So she had some severe trauma, happen to her when she was a kid. She, her dad started sexually abusing her when she was maybe 6 months old, until the time that he was taken away when she was 7 years old. And a lot of it she doesn't remember. So for her, she feels like maybe she left her body in order to protect herself. She learned, and she's really connected with source and energy. She gets these messages and downloads. She's a very, very connected spiritual soul. So I'm thinking what she's asking is maybe she doesn't remember those things is because maybe she came in as someone to not remember, as someone else to come in, and that's why she doesn't remember, and she thought it was to protect herself, or possibly about sharing the body. Maybe she came in and out. Maybe what was happening to her was something was happening to someone else to protect her from having those horrific memories of these terrible things that did happen to her.
Something, I will answer the question but not dictate to her reality, and this, my dog has to be a part of everything. Sorry, it's a serious topic and my dog is being so silly, but sometimes she does that too, to be the comic relief during difficult topics. If Angela, I didn't see her name properly, but if the angel...
Well, it's Angel and Joy, but her name is Angeline.
Good. If Angeline was not in her physical body during times of abuse, like if she had, escaped and wasn't really there, sometimes there are protectors that come in and kind of protect and guard and occupy the body, because otherwise it's like empty, like knock, 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 like nobody's home. There can be naughty things that come in too. So it is very possible that there were protectors that came in that, took care of the body and shielded her consciousness from the truth of what was going on. And that it's like being a caretaker. Like if you are on mental vacation, it's not vacation. If you have vacated the premises due to some severe difficulty, there are caretakers that sometimes come in too. So I think that it might be a situation like that.
See, for me, I always remember that I was different from everybody, that I didn't fit in, and I always wanted to fit in. But I got bullied, I got, treated, and like my parents came from Czechoslovakia, and they came to Canada after the Russians invaded, and so they didn't, in 68, and they didn't know English, so I, didn't learn English till I was 5, so I was a little bit slower, on the English learning, and I thought maybe that's why I was a little bit different, but I always felt, different until I started to come into my own power and started to learn how powerful I was. And then, I was, kind of left my house, kicked out of my house, and, at an early age at 15. And then, kind of got adopted by some really rough and tough people, and then I got this persona of being rough and tough. And, then all of a sudden, I felt accepted, but I went through this weird journey, and so that's why I'm not sure if this person that told me, I don't know if I am a walk-in or not, but I've just had someone tell me that I was, and so that's why I don't really know about that journey. I just know that I've been here, and I remember, most of, for quite a few years, got into the drugs and alcohol where things were a bit of a blur because, that was prevalent, and, it took me away from my path and away from my journey. And, until I stopped, 8 years ago. And then, now I'm coming more into who I am and what I'm meant to be here to do.
I will also say this. I have a friend, and we'll just call them like Andy, and he doesn't say that he's a walk-in, but he's told me a profound story that one night he just felt himself level up and he became Andrew 2.0. He just became more his true self. And I think that these types of profound changes can and do happen, where maybe a person is only 45% of who they really are, and then some inner floodgates are opened or some light bulbs are turned on, and then overnight or seemingly in a very short amount of time, a person become supercharged and even more, they become 98% of who they are. And it doesn't even necessarily mean a different soul has come in. It just means there's been a life-changing transformation. So I hold the door open for all sorts of different things. And yes, sobriety can be another thing that really causes profound inner changes of going from a minimal percentage of your true self to, fully embodying and fully inhabiting one's life and one's life presence. And there are other things too, like spontaneous spiritual awakenings. Things can really change people. I know someone who was just in the presence of the Dalai Lama at like a group talk that was in our small town. And he had a spontaneous experience of, like, I guess you would say, the Kundalini going up his spine. And he was very different after that. He was kind of like a military guy who had been kind of a bit violent and he was not prepared for the spiritual transition. He kind of got thrown for a loop, and then it took a long time for him to integrate it. And then I watched him change over his life. But I think he was still the same person, the same soul. He just had a profound spiritual experience that happened from one afternoon.
So what was it like connecting with, the people that, the person was, the body, the family, the friends, have them been aware now that you are a walk-in? Like, how, kind of tell us a little bit about, how that experience worked.
I faced a lot of rejection and a lot of misperception because I had a brain injury. And I knew that I was not insane or psychiatric. And no offense to anyone, if you're insane or if you have psychiatric or mental imbalances, there's nothing wrong with that. That just means that's a particular type of biochemical injury. But I knew that wasn't what was going on with me. I knew that I had not just a biochemistry or some, difficulty like that. I knew that I had like organic structural brain damage. So it was difficult for me to get adequate treatment and to be interpreted correctly of what was going on with me. And I had seizures for many years that also were underdiagnosed and underrecognized. So I had a difficult early chapter. Like, I was not articulate. It looked like I was not, in control of my life. And the people around me didn't necessarily know the real story of what had happened to me. So it was a challenge to be able to prove to them, like I'm sane, and these are the things that really happened. And I just felt like it took many years for me to kind of prove myself, not only to friends and family, but to humanity. And my artwork was a big part of that journey. I started to make these paintings that are, I'm actually dog sitting here. This is what I'm in a lovely person's house, and I'm taking care of their cats and dogs while they are away during the holiday season. So I'm not in my studio where you would see my paintings behind me. But I love taking care of animals and helping people in that way. The paintings that I do and that I can share with people, a lot of my motivation for doing that was to show, like, I have this organizational principle in my mind that I'm very sane and organized, but I wasn't always able to put it into words. So now I'm very fluent and I'm able to put it into words, and I do classes online and videos, and I have for many, many years. But in the first couple of years that I was here, I just did a lot of paintings and drawings. I was not very articulate or connected to other people. And I would just show people my artwork in the sense that I was hoping that it would somehow communicate something to them, so that they would see, like, there's something going on here that really makes sense. But I found it was difficult to be authenticated in that way. And also, humanity, I feel, had to level up to be kind of ready for me and my message and what I'm all about. So the initial years that I was here, I faced a lot of rejection, and not all the friends and friendship relationships that I had were able to make the transition from, like, knowing me as the person that they knew and then knowing me as Aurora. A lot of them just couldn't quite make that leap. They couldn't integrate with the new version or the new person who was here. But I have a couple of friends that I would just consider to be super golden friends. Like, one is a friend from the high school era that, like, so knew me as Debbie in high school, and then knew me as Aurora coming here in 2001, and has seen my whole life trajectory, the first 27 years and the past 20 years and everything. And is, like, I say, like, a real angel in my life and has been, a great companion and given me good insight and been there when I needed a friend. And also I've been there for him too. So there are some people that were able to do that, but I was not angry at the people that couldn't deal, because it was just weird. Sometimes it's like, this is just too much. And so sometimes people are kind of like, back away slowly if it is just too much, and that's okay too. But family, it took a long time for Debbie's family to accept it, because I think they didn't want to think that their daughter was dead. I think they didn't want to think that her soul had been erased or harmed or changed or anything like that, and that they didn't want to have to deal with that. So it was maybe easier to think like, oh no, this is just our daughter with like, some brain problem. But I'm like, no, I'm really a different person. So, and I think that also being a walk-in was very exotic at that time, and maybe now there's more of them or more people talk about it. But just back then, it was just like, I felt like a very, whatever, like I felt like I was the only one, or that it was very weird and strange, and that, there were people in my life didn't really know how to take it at all. So what ended up happening was I always found a network of companions that would be like a surrogate family to me. And I was always interested in having like Earth celebrations and, holidays and what do people do. And I'm big on all that. So like, I would always be kind of like, find a surrogate family and go for holiday experiences and all those types of things. And so now fast forward to 20 years later, where I held the door open for family members, that they would kind of like get it and they would catch up, and they had to go through their own personal grief of the loss of their daughter, and then acceptance eventually of me. And now I'm more accepted and integrated into their family, into their household, than I was when I first came in. But it took a long time. So I would just say advice to anyone, like, hold the door open for people. Never sacrifice your own integrity. Like, I always maintain, like, no, like, I'm Aurora, like, I'm this, I'm a galactic walk-in, I'm from another world. But you can understand how it was so difficult for them to not see that as a form of insanity or inappropriateness. They couldn't put it into their worldview. But also it was hurtful to me to not be accepted. But I held the door open for them for many, many years. And now at this point, they're much more understanding and even encouraging of me in my life, because I think they also used to really wonder, like how are you like gonna make a living, like being an artist and being a walk-in. Like, I think that it was very unimaginable to them. It is not a regular type of existence. The cat also is clearly comforting me. Yes, I have a very unusual existence. So I've been doing things like painting and making music and doing videos and doing remote teaching and things like that for a long time. And that I just had this very different type of existence than just having a regular job. But to some people, that is like that, that is not in their worldview to be able to live a life like that. But it is normal for me.
So now, do you like go for family dinners? Are you like, do you see each other's at the holidays, or are you living in different places where that doesn't really happen?
That's it. I live on the West Coast, so I live in California now, and they live on the East Coast. So I haven't seen them in person in a long time, but I have a much closer relationship with them over the past couple of years than I ever did before. And so now I talk with them on the phone a lot more and have a lot more video calls with them. And I always share, I do tons of music, so I always have new albums coming out, and I send it to them, and they're very interested in hearing what I'm doing. So I think that it just took them, like I'm telling you, I held the door open. It took them a long time to kind of understand, like, their daughter is gone, there's sadness and grief, but there's a new person here, and I'm a good person, and then to come to accept and celebrate who is here. And that was a big, like a healing for everybody that was involved. So that's what I would say to anybody who's going through any kind of challenges with the biological family, because I know that it's not just the issue of being a walk-in. Like, sometimes people face lack of acceptance for a variety of different reasons, if it's their sexual orientation or any other aspect of their life that is strange or different, or anything that might be different from their parental expectation. Hold the door open, but never sacrifice who you are. Keep on being your authentic self, and then at a certain point, like, they might kind of cross the bridge and come on over to be in alignment with your reality.
So now the Aurora, the musician, is that, is there another Aurora the musician, or is that you that's, like, because doing some searches, there's Aurora musician. I'm just wondering if that's you as well.
You know something? There are so many musicians named Aurora and bands and symphonies that it might be hard to find me. So there is a rather well-known singer named Just Aurora, and I'm Just Aurora also. So whenever I upload something on Apple Music, I usually have to contact the company and say, no, this is my music, that's her music, and separate everything out. I love it when people find my music. The best thing to do is to search for my names of my albums. So if you want to find me, I am on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify and everything. You can search for something like Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, and you'll find my album, or my most recent one is called Attempted Eradication of a Light Entity. And that's about experiences that I had over this past summer, over the past six months or so. And if you search for those songs, then you'll find my profile and you'll be able to find me much more easily. But yeah, I use music as a way of traveling through the cosmos, and also as a way of inspiring others, and also as a way of speaking things and feelings that, like, I can't even put into words. There are experiences that I just can't articulate or verbalize, and I find a way to kind of put the information through my fingertips and play it through my piano. And my music is very abstract and experimental. All of it is safe for work, so you don't have to worry about someone objectionable lyrics or any whatever strange music that people will be like, oh, like I'm afraid of you because you listen to that. It's all music for all ages, children to grandparents, and it's very avant-garde. It doesn't sound like anything maybe that you've heard on the radio. And some of it is digital and strange and experimental. And it's really music from my home world. Like, what the Aurora Collective is this group of people that we share ideas, information. It's like acrobats that fly across and catch each other and then fly again. And when you fly, you make these amazing harmonic overtones and do flips through time. And then also it makes a beautiful light show. So that's the world that I'm used to coming from. It's like a world of pure art and music and artistry and harmonics and divine perfection and color and just fun and joy. And so when I am in my music and when I'm making that, that's the world that I'm in. Like, that's my true world. I put on headphones and I just really go into my music. Like, sometimes I close my eyes and I see the colors inside of my eyes and I hear what I'm playing and I hear what it is, and I dive into that world. And it's very different than this world of, like, the world of couches and, responsibilities and garbage, trash needs to be taken out and laundry needs to be done and things like that. It's a different level of personal, creative, and perception freedom that I occupy when I make my music. So I also make it like as a homing beacon. Other people can find my frequency or tune into what I do and where I'm from by listening to my music. And I also, when I do Flying Rainbow Lasagne, it's a real dance. So I dance on a genetic level, I vibrate on an intercellular level, and I also I dance with my arms and legs. All of my music, I try to make it like dance music that will make you want to move. So music is a huge part of my life. It's like a food that nourishes me and gives me energy to keep going through my day and is so important in every way. So I didn't used to make all of my own original music. I've done that like within the past 5 years, and within the past 2 years I've been very prolific. So all of the stuff that I make, I'm trying to make things that sound like my home world, that are evocative of that higher dimensional space, and that people can use for their meditations or uplift or their inner dance or their inner journeys. And that it takes you into, it's like the fuel for going into a better world. It should rock. You should rock, but all my work is not rock and roll. Some of it is weird, but yes, dancing is very spiritual. It is a form of gestural communication. When you dance and when you move your body, it's a way of speaking beyond these types of words.
It sounds very raw, what you're describing. So can people find your music and find more about you through the website that's, scrolling at the bottom?
Yes, so Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a good place to start. You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is also Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and everything is linked on my website. So all of my music is on my YouTube. You can find me on Patreon also, that's linked on my website. And Patreon is really cool because if you join, I often share music that is like weird experimental things that I don't necessarily release other places, but that I share it there. And I do a lot of teaching about Flying Rainbow Lasagna and things that are more, what would I say, personable and about personal connection than just like a generalized thing on YouTube. So I know all of my patrons. It's a beautiful community is what I'm trying to say. Beautiful community of Flying Rainbow Lasagna appreciators, embodiers, people who are on their own path of genetic transformation. And what else can you find on my website? On my website, I also have my online class. That's big. So I didn't do my online class for the past 2 years. I took a hiatus. I did a lot of music. We also had the pandemic. I hope that I have enough batteries to keep going on my thing. Otherwise, I'll get my little charger and charge it up. I'm on my tablet here. Like I said, I'm remote. I'm dog sitting. I'm teaching my class again. The class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. So I have many semesters that are already listed and archived on YouTube. But what I'm doing now is a new semester. So I'm actually just starting the first couple of lessons this week. So it's a perfect time to enroll. And what I teach about are everything from the chakras and the energy centers and what your DNA is and how DNA is connected to time and multidimensionality and how that ends up culminating in the concept of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So all of the stuff that I make my artwork and my music about also has an intellectual presence, and that I did this class since 2013. I did it for like 7 years, and I taught many semesters every year. And then, like that became like breathing to me. That was very normal for me. And then, like I said, I took a break and I went more into music. And I also felt like everything that was going on in terms of the pandemic was whatever. We're through the looking glass. We're like beyond the levels of what is normal. And so I felt like, okay, I didn't want to pretend that I knew everything that was going on. So now, in having a bit more perspective, I feel like I felt so many things. I learned so much over the summer and the experiences that I went through that I feel like I came back a lot stronger and with a lot more wisdom, and I wanted to share that too. So in every way, I'm excited to be back in my teaching, my professorial groove. So basically, if you go to flyingrainbowlasagna.com, you will find the enrollment links for teachable.com, where I have the different recorded lessons, and you can become a patron and enroll that way. You can go to Teachable and enroll that way. You can contact me for alternative payment plans and scholarships, because I tell people also, I'm interested in having people participate. I'm interested in having great minds and great thoughts be a part of things, and it shouldn't be limited to whether or not you're able to pay the tuition. So contact me if you have an interest, even if you are not able to do tuition. And yeah, classes actually begin this Saturday. So Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and it's all about genetic transformation and moving towards greater levels of freedom. In this moment, I feel like I'm not even articulate enough to be able to put into words all the things that it's about. There's so many things, like the Merkaba for personal protection, what your pineal gland is, sun gazing, all the different practices that I do, and all the things that I've been teaching to other people for many years, and basically the transformation of how you do the Flying Rainbow, or let's say how understanding the Flying Rainbow Lasagna then affects the behavior of your DNA and can lead to greater levels of cognitive and perception freedom in time.
So now, can people just like maybe pay for one class if they were just interested for one class, opposed to like a whole semester, or how does that work? And what's kind of fees are you charging people?
I would say that it might not make sense to just have one class out of context. Oh, you know something, Cheeky? I love you so much. You just must be a part of something so much. I have to be serious and talk about stuff on the video. Thank you very much. I think that the series makes more sense and is culminative, just like learning math, like lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. They all kind of add up together, although you can certainly dip in and out. I would say if a person just had a passing curiosity, check out my playlists on YouTube. that all the semesters are organized like semester 2019.2 or semester 2018, and they could learn about particular topics, but that all the topics do fit together as a holistic whole, and that it's a commitment to do the whole entire class. But I think that people would get a lot out of it, and also beautiful community of really conscious participants with great minds who are very intellectual and very advanced. So I have so much appreciation for the student body. Some of these people have been in my class, over and over and over, because you don't have to keep on re-enrolling, for like many semesters. So they're always learning and always having something to share. So yeah, I would say if a person has a passing interest, check out a few of the videos on the playlist. But just don't let money be an obstacle to being able to participate. Like if you want to, learn music lessons or something like that, like you should be able to learn just because you have a thirst for knowledge, regardless of whether you have everything should not be about money. That's my philosophy. Especially, I should say this, especially for something that's about spiritual aspiration. Like that should not be only for people that have enough money to be able to pay for what I have to share. So I offer what I have to share, and so I offer a certain number of scholarships every semester, and that's just my way of doing it.
Well, that's awesome. And like the reason why I say certain classes, they're squeezing everybody right now. And, a lot of people are, kind of finding things tight. And if they thought maybe one class they really wanted to maybe learn about, where they were able to just, maybe afford one class, there's reason why I just thought about that. But it's nice that you're able to, accommodate people that are kind of going through tough times, because the spiritual journey is the most important thing.
I absolutely recognize what's going on in the economy, and I respect everybody's journey and the challenges that we're all facing. And the challenge with the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, it's like learning to play the piano, that I can't just teach it in like a 1-hour class. There's a lot of music theory, there's a lot of interdimensional backstory that I need to tell people about in order to get to the culmination of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, and it's a journey. So yeah, if people have an interest and they simply don't have the money for it, then I would simply say contact me and we'll make an arrangement, because what really matters is that, quote unquote, you want to learn to play the piano. I want interested and engaged potential musicians. Doesn't matter to me. Well, it does matter to me, of course, because I also live in the world. But, I don't want to misportray myself, and I value the work that I do. But I've just always had this policy that if people want to participate and they are not able to, for them to contact me and make arrangements. And that's also just part of my philosophy in sharing this information. But other things are commodities. Like I make clothing and I make my music, and those are commodities, and they are sold for money, and that's just the way of the world. But our way of the world is changing, of course.
No, that's beautiful. So are these classes live and interactive?
Yes. So there's recorded materials that are whiteboards, like videos where you see the whiteboard and animations and things like that. And then there are live lectures that are interactive where you see my face, and that I usually do those via Zoom and then upload them as an archive later in case people aren't able to catch the class live. You can always get it later if you have to, if you have a commitment or something like that.
But the ones that are live, they can come and comment and ask questions, and
Yes.
And how long is the class?
Each level is 1 hour, so each week there's level 1 for 1 hour and level 2 for 1 hour. And the two levels usually complement one another with the same subject matter. So 1 week I might be talking about the Merkaba. First I would do an introductory level, sharing about it, and then an advanced level sharing about it. So there's level 1 unteachable and level 2 unteachable. And you can do them both at the same time, but your brain might explode. So it might be better first eat one slice of lasagna, then digest it, then eat the next slice of lasagna, which might be the most sensible way for some people to do it.
And is there afterwards you give them some homework or some exercises that people can actually take what you've taught them and, kind of practice it in the real world?
Yes, my homework is fun homework. It involves drawing pictures of what these harmonic chakras and overtones look like. So I've had wonderful successes in previous semesters of people who are like, I don't have drawing skills, I can't do this. I'm like, you can do it, you can learn it. I teach them step by step how to draw it. It's basically learning the energetic anatomy of your own body by drawing these circles. And that's similar to when you were a little child, when you might have learned your ABCs, tracing the letter A, tracing the letter B, tracing the letters, or learning your numbers by tracing it. It involves neural pathways when you draw or write something as opposed to just watching a video about it. So yeah, my way of teaching is very accessible. You don't have to be a quantum physicist or a mathematician to know everything about it to begin. I use language and analogies that are very accessible to people, and my homeworks are fun homeworks, even though they do involve math. So be prepared.
And do they submit it and then you
Yeah,
give them a response on
that's right.
it? Not really a grading system, but kind of a response on what they've done?
I have students photograph or scan their work and send it to me via email, and I look at it to make sure that they have the right colors in the right places and the right harmonic proportions. And then sometimes they do very beautiful artistic, portrayals of it too. And I appreciate people who do a good job with the artistry. But what matters is that it's accurate, accuracy first, and then the beauty and the artistry of it also matters too.
So, do you know what your mission is here, and have you completed your mission, or is this maybe an ongoing thing?
My mission is an ongoing thing. So my entire Aurora Collective is all about healing or upgrading or creating a new substrate for human genetic integration, that the modifications that were done to the body and to human consciousness are being changed. It's what you would call either DNA activation or reweaving of the strands of your DNA. And so that's part of the caretaker quality, guardianship quality of who and what my collective is. And my individual journey of being here as Aurora, I not only teach about this shape, I embody it in my own shape. I embody it in my body, and then I emanate it outward to other people. So I do it, I do the dance, I am the dance, I share that dance with other people, and I do it consensually now. I ask that people give like a telepathic consent. You know something, I might, hold on a second, if our conversation goes a little longer, let me get my charging cord for this, because I don't want to lose my battery power while we're talking. I'm so sorry. Hold on.
All good. Yeah, it was kind of a little freezing there, so I'm not sure if it's the batteries telling her that she
I'm
needs to
so
be
sorry.
plugged
It's
in.
because I need to put together my charging cord. Here, let me just do this, and then let me get myself plugged in. I'm so sorry to do this right while we're in the middle. It's because like I said, I'm not where I usually am in terms of doing my videos and things like that.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you for your understanding and your accommodation, even though that was not the best camera work in the world. Back to
So
your
you're
question.
talking about, so you're talking about maybe like DNA upgrading people's,
Exactly.
helping them to upgrade what was kind of lost, stolen, or hijacked.
You got it. Thank you for giving me the words and keeping me on track. That is exactly what this work is about. The upgrading part of it is an intellectual explanation of new concepts that are involved in the shape. And part of the upgrading is a physical presence. Like I emanate an actual song that you can hear or feel, and to tune into that song and have it affect your own somatic cellular genetic behavior. I invite people to dance along with me. And I like to say that it is, consent is big in terms of cosmic law and what my collective is all about. It's very different than the sense of like, just come to a planet and like take over people's minds. And none of that is acceptable on my level or on any galactic sophisticated society. So I'm very keenly aware of the responsibilities of having something to offer, wanting to share it with other people, wanting to share it in the right way, not wanting to impose it upon others. So that is what I do. I offer this Flying Rainbow Lasagne shape. I offer this information or this new way of doing things with the human genetic code. Don't force it on anyone. But just like if I am singing a song or making any kind of music, like if you hear my music, it's going to affect you. So you know that you're going to affect other people no matter what you do. But I don't like reach into your mind and, force you to Flying Rainbow Lasagne. It's nothing like that, even though we know that we live in a world where those types of transgressions do exist. So I set myself apart as a different type of extraterrestrial visitor, as a different type of newcomer to this world. of offering things but not imposing them. Let me move this table also because I know that you can't really see my face as effectively as before. Offering but not imposing them. And then also all of this is about freedom and personal empowerment, that the dance itself reawakens dormancies in the human genetic potential and allows for the creation of completely new combinations that would not have been available before. So it's kind of like if you have a Rubik's Cube, you know, that old game from the 1980s, the Rubik's Cube, where you have to solve a puzzle. The way that you solve the puzzle is not by like breaking the cube apart or tearing off all the stickers and somehow, you know, cheating the system in that way. What you have to do is twist it and turn it and curve it and make it rearrange the parts that are already there. That is what everybody needs to do with their DNA in order to transcend the limitations that were placed into these bodies a very long time ago, and that have been preventing humans from being really supermen, superhumans, you know, like a superhero, all of those types of things, almost mythological in a sense. And I want you to remember, like, you're all superheroes. You just have these dormancies that are going to awaken. And the dormancies they're heart-centered. So none of this is about like becoming the strongest so that you can oppress others. Like, I hope you can hear that I'm facetious in my voice when I say that. Like, no, that is not what this is about. It is about the personal best. Yes, please do check it out. The dance itself, first you learn new concepts and new intellectual ideas. Then those new intellectual ideas translate into new genetic behavior, and then that translates into changes in the physicality structure of your body and changes in the way that you relate to the physicality structure of time, space, and consciousness. So your inside world becomes your outside world, and then your outside world reflects back into your inside world. And that is kind of like a lucid dream or a dream state where you know that you are dreaming and you are you're in positive control of your dream. Like, I'm sure all of us have had the experience where you're in a dream, but you're not really in control of it. Like, I had a dream recently where I was like in my pajamas in a restaurant. And I was like, I don't really think I should be in my pajamas in a restaurant. And I kind of think I'm in a dream. And the guy was like, don't worry, you know? So I was like kind of aware I was in a dream, but not fully empowered. And I would say our goal is to know here, where I'm sitting in my couch, taking care of the dogs. You would want to know that you're in a dream, a self-created reality or a self-generated reality, but then also be empowered to be like, oh, like, I'm creating this reality. I'm a part of its creation, because I also give a lot of credit to divine creator, you know, the sense of this abstraction that is this enormous level of intelligence that is beyond little old me, partnership with that larger sense of divinity and intelligence, to be in control of it or consciously doing it. And that is, I think, what we can do in order to fix and heal this world, instead of like, the world is a crazy nightmare and there are all these things that are happening and there's war and there's, you know, economic disturbances and sexual disturbances and all of these things that are bad and wrong and nightmarish. Those things all exist. If I know that I'm in a dream, I can be like, oh no, I'm still running. I know I'm in a dream, but I'm running away from all these boogeymen. But what if I know that I'm in a dream and I can actually do something about the boogeyman? That is what I want everyone to feel like, that you are in a dream, recognize that this is being emanated from yourself in divine co-creative partnership, and then that you have the capacity to transform that dream into a better level of reality. And that would look like changing the way that we do money, changing the way we structure our social structures, and how we use the ecology and other organisms, and also how we manifest matter, you know, like the idea of collapsing matter from a quantum state into a physicality state and how you do that. I know so many people that have been manifesting things that they need. Like, a lot of the time it's coffee, because I think everyone is addicted to coffee. So they're like, oh, like, I woke up in the morning and there wasn't, good for you. I'm not, I'm on decaf. But a lot of people they're like, oh, I know I need that coffee in the morning. So they're like, oh no, my husband drank the last of it. Well, maybe if I rummage around in this cupboard, maybe, oh, I found another pound of coffee. Or this one woman found a pound of coffee just on the park bench where she sat down. Or some other needed item. Like I'm very good at manifesting little tiny screws or something that I need for a project out of my big giant like work bin, that I'm just like, oh, like I'm working on this art project and I need like a bolt or a screw or a fastener, and it's got to be a particular size, and it's like, maybe I've got one in my work bin, and I just kind of go in there and just kind of like feel around, and then it's like, oh, like look, that's the exact thing I was looking for. So I have the capacity to manifest tiny bolts and screws or thumbtacks, but I think that these are smaller versions of what we can all begin to do when our DNA becomes fully awakened from a dormant state. I think we can manifest more than thumbtacks. I think we can make larger structures and larger materials and have even a greater impact. But we also should be super responsible about what we're making and how we're using our magical manifestation powers. And like I say, I give a lot of credit to the larger divine creator. Like if I'm an artist in the studio of reality, somebody built the studio, somebody invented art studio, somebody invented paint, somebody invented the capacity to make paintings of reality. I must give credit to that manifester that even manifested consciousness and me and the raw materials to be able to even make these things happen. So all of that is about the, ooh, keep it cool, the respectful usage of energy for manifestation, and doing things from a heart-centered perspective, maybe not an ego-centered perspective, doing what is right for the larger community of consciousness, not just what is convenient for the self. These are all the big lessons that you learn when you start to manifest things. Like if you have a magical wish-making machine and you make your wishes, do you only wish for yourself? Do you wish for others? How much can you wish for others? Are there boundaries? Are you going against someone else's freedom? If I wish that they would have this, or that they could do this, or I wish this for the world. Like there are all of these real questions that you have to go through, and that's part of the maturation process and becoming a responsible cosmic citizen. So it's all appropriate. Everybody's got to go through it.
That's one of the biggest secrets that they've tried to hide from humanity, is that we are manifestors and creators, yes, and we are co-creators of this universe. And as long as you stay within karmic and universal law, then you can, virtually manifest anything. And, people, I guess, fears are what really show people, because when you're afraid, it seems like you're manifesting these things in order to help you get over those fears. So if you're really afraid and you're worried about things and you're worried, you're actually making those things happen for you to be able to overcome those fears, so you don't have to have that. And that's one of the biggest examples of how we can manifest and create things. But we should be able to be taught how we could use this for the good, instead of having these things that we don't want to happen to us, that we can make these things happen, because source creator always provides what we need.
Jesse, it's so true. Sometimes people manifest the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, like in the Ghostbusters movie. Don't, whatever you're afraid of, whatever's your boogeyman, don't think of it. Of course, it's the first thing the guy thinks of. That is part of doing the inner work, the inner clearing or healing of traumas, so that when you're in the potential state of making something happen, you don't just manifest your fears or manifest from the pain that you've been through, or even from ancestral traumas. So we have all been having to do a lot of inner clearing to be prepared for this moment of empowerment. And just know that like you're not going to get like smacked down by the cosmos, like, oh no, you thought the wrong thought. Like in the art studio, there's pencils and there's erasers. So if you make a mistake, you can erase things out. Like understand that's part of the artistic exploration process. And also, we don't want to be in a dream world where we are just manifesting more and more and more nightmares. So it is essential to look at the root causes of like, why do you expect things? What has happened to you? What happened to your ancestors? Why do you think reality is a certain way? And then how can you imagine an expanded and different definition of what reality is in order to redefine it and make something completely new happen, not just recreate the negative reverberations and echoes of the past.
And mistakes really aren't mistakes. They're just learning lessons on this, journey. So, whatever it is that you're going through, you need to be going through it in order to get to where you need to get to. And I recently posted something is, what if this is the dream, and when our physical body dies, that's when we truly wake up?
This world is a dream, but I don't think that you have to have a metabolic death in order to wake up. I think that you can become awake in the dream and even regenerate and heal your body so that you don't have to die. So many people look at death as the only portal, because that's the way we came here. We came here through birth, and then you think everybody leaves through death. I don't think it has to be that way. I think that ascension, or this redefinition of what our experience is, can be a different portal. That means that you still can have a body, or this body, and continue onward, but just redefine your experience. Some people that I know died or had to die or chose to die. And I'm not angry or disappointed or anything like that, even though I feel the loss, but I definitely feel I have friends in heaven. But for them, they needed to, have a disease or an accident and then die physically, and then they moved on and had a different experience. But I think that it's possible in this generation to make a different choice or a different pathway so that you don't have to physically die, but that you can definitely metamorphosize and redefine who you are and have a completely different and upgraded life experience, in the same way as if you dropped your body and then went, as a spirit, because we imagine that there's greater levels of freedom and where you can go and what you can do as just a disembodied spirit. I don't think that you have to do that in order to be able to get those levels of freedom in this generation.
And like Jesus ascended, Siddhartha, Buddha ascended, there's lots of, lots of, examples of, people that have ascended. And I think
Yes.
right now we're in such a magical time
Yes.
that I think the energy and the things that are happening around us because of, what this whole plane of existence has gone through, I think a lot more people are going to be ascending. And I believe if, you have that pure heart, and no matter what your life has gone through, that you have the ability to ascend and keep this physical body.
Where I come from, or what I remember about being in a physicality body before I became a part of the Aurora Collective, because that collective is like a culminative experience of having physicality and then moving into being a coherent light body, and then moving into being kind of like a semi-plasma being. Everybody ascended is what I'm trying to say. And this would be considered ancient Atlantis, that there was a time before death was invented where everybody took the ascension pathway. Nobody felt like, if you're bowling, nobody ever had a gutter ball. Everybody always had a strike, and you got all the pins every time. That's what ascension is. When your bowling ball, quote unquote, of time goes right down the central alleyway and does not go to the periphery at all. And that experience and that culture that was there, death is like a separation and a loss, but ascension is not a separation and a loss. It's a celebration, and there's no grief or pain. So it's just a very different sense of metamorphosizing and then graduating and then going in a new direction. And you're right, many masters and teachers have been here, and they have ascended, and they have also had physical deaths. And there are stories of people that didn't have a physical death. Like they say Lao Tzu just rose up into a ball of light, and they said that he brought his horse with him, which I think is so, like, I want to bring my dog with me, that we're just going to rise up in a ball of light. You can see how much I love her. So I like to envision things like that. And there are also stories like Native American tradition Taganawida, that he transitioned or rose up but did not have a physical death. And then there's a couple of guys written about in the Bible, like Enoch was one of them. And they said that they lived hundreds or thousands of years, and then they just rose up and they did not die a physical death. And I would say, don't put pressure on yourself or think that anybody who dies is bad or a disappointment. None of that stuff. But just hold forth these stories. Like, people can run 100 miles. People can do things that would be considered amazing or impossible, but they actually did these things. And how amazing would it be if we did that all together at once as a planet? Everybody expects some kind of book of Revelations, like rivers of lava will burn you, and then you will die, and then there will be a jubilee, and you will be in heaven on earth. What if it happens differently, and you don't have to have a great catastrophe or a great destruction, but you can have this rising up and continuation of life in, a benevolent lucid dream? That's what I would wish for everyone. Instead of first destruction, then reconstruction, I would simply wish for transformation, metamorphosis, and greater levels of freedom.
Yeah, I think the destruction is happening right now, and that's what we're going through with these, the 6,000-year-old death cult, and I think it's
Yes.
coming to an end, and
Well said.
it's the final end game for them, and the rebirth of this new earth is because they're now they've taken it to be injecting these kids and with this stuff, and so we just can't continue on this destructive path that we're going on. So I guess my final question is, you've said that you're here and helping people upgrade their DNA. What about the people that have got this injection that's the mRNA that's supposedly actually changing people's DNA? Are you able to still help upgrade there to help purify that out, or have you even come across any of this? Or because it's another great divide again, the people that have been injected and not, and there's people that say that they won't even help people that have been injected, or there's people that say that anybody that has been injected or even got a no swab test, there's no hope for them. And so there's a lot of people still pushing this divide and this fear and this saying that once you've got it, you're no longer worthy type of mentality, which is, to me, is pretty insane, because a lot of people are getting forced or pressured, or they've been brainwashed into it. To say that they don't have any more hope left is pretty callous and not loving and what we're supposed to be as as people still here.
Such an excellent question. I will tell you that I do not feel that any person or any consciousness is disposable. And that even if a person has been genetically modified or cloned or uploaded into some kind of AI virtual reality world, I still do not think that they are a disposable consciousness that is somehow unworthy, like just toss them out the window and forget about them. I'm not like that. And I think that many people's viewpoint is heavily influenced by the book of Revelation and the idea of the mark and the mark of the beast, and the idea that if you get certain things or have certain things implanted in your body, that it would somehow make you unfit for the kingdom of heaven. And all I can say is that the God divinity that I'm familiar with and the Christ presence, like the abstract Christ presence that I am connecting with, and that is my whatever, worship is a loose word, not an accurate word, because it's not necessarily looking at Christ as a person with a face, but looking at Christ as a multifaceted, enormous consciousness that is a mind that is also inside of each one of us. When I connect with those presences, is what I'm trying to say, they're compassionate, profoundly, fiercely loving, that they would never discard someone and be like, oh, you got this injection, that's it, like clang, I shut the door and throw you out and you're banished and I'm never gonna let you in. That would be the antithesis of what I experience and know to be truthful in terms of the loving, compassionate, merciful, healing, forgiving presences of these divine beings, who also, their scale, like when I talk about how big they live for billions of years, they are enormous in their size. They have an enormous perspective across time and dimensionality. It's a huge level of responsibility to live at that magnitude of being, and it also makes a creature or an organism. They are profoundly loving. Like, they have seen it all. They see everything. They know everything. They're not going to throw you out the window and say you don't get into heaven. But You might have to get healed in some way. So what I used to really consider, like, what would happen if a person became cloned? Like, would they lose their soul? Would they be lost? Well, I really would wonder and be concerned about this. I went through a lot of experiences over the summer that had to do with transhumanism and what happens when you interact with mind and machine and technology and all of those things. And what I really have decided is that no, consciousness is disposable, not even if you live in a computer. Like, what if we took Jesse and we took him out of his body, but we uploaded him into a hard drive and everything? You would still be a valuable being, person, creature, organism, piece of consciousness. You're not worthy of being just discarded just because of that. Technology itself is not evil, but it's being used in very evil ways. And I feel that there's always a way to heal and rectify. That even if you went away from God or went away from your soul or somehow lost or forgot yourself and who you truly were, that there is the capacity to always return to yourself and return to who and what you truly are and remember yourself. And I met in like a digital underworld. I literally went into these mental places and I interacted with all sorts of different beings, and I care about them. I have compassion for them. I would want them to get out of their cage. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you got uploaded into some kind of virtual reality and it's like a dead end, or you're cloned, it's a dead end. What happens to you? Where do you go? What do you do? I would wish for someone to be able to get out of the trap and not simply be trapped and victimized there for forever. So that is what I would also imagine a just, merciful, loving God and Christ presence would want for these. And the creator of consciousness, I don't think discards anything. Would not be like you and you, I'm saving you, but you, like, I'm getting rid of you, like, you're nothing. I don't think that it's like that at all. So I would really hope for, and I feel like I needed to get the larger perspective. My thing is down to 1%. I hope that my computer doesn't die on me because I'm plugged in now, but I'm just trying to finish up before, because I know I'm taking a long time.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that there is a way to rectify the genetic degradation of what humans are experiencing from the injections, and also if a person were cloned, and also if a person were uploaded to virtual reality. I think there's always a path back, but I think that it involves a lot of healing, a lot of rectification, it might take miracles, but I do believe in miracles and have experienced them. So I think that there's hope. Don't throw people away. And also, it's more of the divide and conquer. So don't also try to find the middle ground with people, even if they've been vaccinated and you don't agree with that. I would say try not to throw away relationships. Don't throw away friendships. Keep the doors of communication open. Those people might come back. They might come back, return to themselves. Like, have the door be open, even if right now it seems like they're across the Grand Canyon. Like, you're over here and they're all the way over there, and there's a giant chasm between you. I think that there's always the capacity for rectification, and you can always come back together.
Yeah, and we can't always control what others say or what others do or what's happening, but we can control how we respond to whatever is happening or to whoever. And that we want to stay true to ourselves, that we want to stay in our loving, our heart vibration, and be able to accept whatever it is that's happening, and just stay true to yourself is the most important thing.
You said really wise words there, that it's about your response to the situation. You are, in many ways, one is defined by one's response to the situation. So if you become very angry and judgmental and say, that's it, like, you got the injection, you're out of my life, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm not going to this and that, it shows a lot about who you are. And if you're a person that says, well, you know something, you did this thing, I don't agree with it, I wish you hadn't done that, I think it's dangerous for blah, blah reason, or it's not a good idea for blah, blah reason, but I'm going to hold the door open. Let's have a conversation. I don't want to discard you as a friend or as a lover or as a community member. That shows real love and real compassion. I think that's the leveling up that we need to do in order to be part of galactic society. And also, there is this duality play that's going on where there are some people that are heading towards ascension and towards spiritual growth, and some people that seem to be going in the opposite direction. And it's a respecting of these two pathways, even if you know which one you want to go on and you don't want to get the injection, and you're watching other people and you think that they're in self-destruction. It's essential to recognize that they're also playing their part or playing their role in a larger superstructure of reality, but you still might want to say to them, like, don't do this thing, like, don't, like, even in a movie, you watch a movie and you're like, don't open that door, don't do that thing, because you know there's going to be a boogeyman there. But they might need that lesson, or they might need to go down that pathway, or they might need that experience. And then I will tell you from my perspective, and that no one has to be discarded or barred from entering heaven or entering paradise, but then there's responsibility. Just like if you do things to your body, like whatever, if you took a lot of drugs and then things happen to your body and you degenerate, then you have to be like, okay, like, this happened because you have to take responsibility for what you did to your own body and how that affected the rest of the world. People need to take responsibility for what they willingly inject into their body. But now they're doing it to some young people who are not consenting, like they're not old enough to know what is going on. And so then there's real questions of how responsible a child can be if a parent or school system makes them have this injection, and what are the ramifications for that. So now we're really into issues of consent and personal sovereignty and personal willpower that are getting very confused, because it's not just about consenting adults. And so now it's kind of like all bets are off, and you just have to understand, like, pathways will be created for people to come back to themselves if they were unwillingly vaccinated or exposed to something or uploaded into something that is not who and what they really are. And I will just tell you, you still are your true self. Even if they tried to make you a cyborg or put you into computers or whatever, you're still you. You still get to make choices about who you are and what you are, and exhibit your free will, even if you are, polluted or changed or something like that. But it just can be a difficult path to come back and return to your true self.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and sharing this time here with us. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to leave, people with here?
Thank you so much for that. I think that I was able to say all of the important things, and I'm down to 1% as I'm watching my battery power and everything like that. So yeah, I would encourage people to find my work, connect with my music, look at the artwork, access my teachings, and continue to support one another in the journey. Like, you're not alone, and a lot of it is running a marathon with other people, so that like, it's difficult, it's grueling, you can do it, you can keep going. You're not alone on all of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aurora. FlyingRainbowLasagne.com is how you can connect with Aurora. She's got all her information. We got Patricia still here. Thanks so much, Jesse and Aurora. You're very, very welcome. A lot of people are, I can see they're going to check you out that are interested. And your class starts on Saturday?
Yeah, it starts on Saturday, and it's never too late to join. So even if you join in a couple of weeks, I know people are very busy over the holidays, you can catch up. The lessons are recorded, the lectures are archived. And yeah, I just invite and encourage everyone to come along and be a part of the journey and the Flying Rainbow Lasagne community of thinkers, which I think are stellar individuals and completely loving and compassionate, and are living the embodiment of creating a better reality. It's very, very exciting to be connected to people like that.
Okay, so this was our fourth missing link for this week. We've been started about 8 or 9 months ago, and I think this is 113th interview that we've done. So we're just trying to get as much information out in these trying times for people. Next week on Wednesday, we've got John Cerrucci on December 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He was in the military, and he's got a lot of information about the Illuminati and a lot of different things, what's going on. And then we've got on Thursday, December 16th, we've got Kumara. So he talks a lot about water and the powers of healing water and things like that. Then we've got Annette, who was a Hollywood sex trafficked victim from the teen. She's like 60 years old now, but she's been able to kind of live, and she's still kind of worried about her life. But she's going to be sharing some of the things that did happen to her through her journey. And then we've got Raylene Short, who I've just recently been kind of introduced to, but she connects with people of kind of what's been going on. So lots of good information, lots of good interviews next week. And thanks so much again, Aurora, and bless your journey. I'm glad we were able to connect and make this happen. So This was great. A lot of good information helped to me. So I really appreciate you and all that you're doing, and just, bless, everything that you do to help people, while we're kind of going through what we're going through here.
Thank you so much, Jesse. So many blessings back. Thank you. I'm very happy that we finally got a chance to connect. And yes, let us all keep going in an upward trajectory, reciprocal love and compassion. And thank you for the work that you're doing also.
And we just got some thank yous, and thank you, and good night, everyone, and have a great night, Aurora, from my beautiful girlfriend, Angeline. So, sending love to you, sending love to y'all. Thanks for all your likes, connects, shares, and making this happen. We're going to be off our 1 month, face crook ban from being able to go live tomorrow. So we're going to start to be able to, go live there. We're on our YouTube channel. We're on our Twitch. We're on our Twitter right now live. We're going to be uploaded to BitChute, to Rumble, and to Telegram. So trying to get this information out to as many people as possible. So thanks again, and we will hopefully, talk to you again, in the near future.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Much appreciation. Much love to you. Thank you.
Okay, bye everyone.
Have a good night.